The president goes to meet with Vladimir Putin, and it goes... Well, I don't know what you were expecting from this, but I'm pretty sure that I know my audience here, and it went about how you were expecting it was going to go. So we'll talk a bit about what happened with that. In other news, Peter Doocy gets under Biden's skin at the end of the interview, and we'll talk a bit about what happened with that as well. Kamala Harris hosts a meeting for several female senators and serves her famous cheese puff, apparently. I didn't know she was famous for that, but we'll talk a bit about that and the fact that cinema missed the event. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Violent weekend in Chicago. Old news, but I guess it made newsworthy, so we'll talk a bit about it. And Andrew Yang launches another UBI bid to try and get himself into New York City. Plus, today we will do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, and I think they are both equally likable and hateable. So join me for that at the end of the show. It's going to be all this and more. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary with a whole shitload of stuff at the top there. I mean, those of you watching on the video platform, you could see it. It's tab, 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 tab. Just all the way across, packed in tighter than sardines. And guess what, guys? We're going to get through all of them. But before we get started, head on over, check out my friends over at the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Head on over there, check out my friends, and go hang out with them as well. There are a bunch of great shows. I missed the Generational Gap last night, but I'm going to listen back while I'm at work today. I got to do the R-rated conservative the same way because usually I do listen to the R-rated conservative back the next day, but yeah, I completely missed the Generational Gap because I was working outside and grilling. It was my fault. I apologize, but I was working outside and grilling, and the neighbors had their kids out, and, well, you never know what Rob's going to say, but you don't really want to have him out with the kids. But regardless, go over there and check out all of my friends over there, the Generational Gap, the Freckles and Brit Show, the Daily Ignoramus, who we will probably rate at the end of this because we've got a lot to go over. The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, and the above-mentioned R-Rated Conservative. Head on over there, check all of them out, and bookmark our page, because once we get back up and running, you can head over there and follow all of them straight from that page, and you can help us support great creators. All right, let's look in at your finance today. Let's get the live chat up to see here. Maybe I'm sitting here doing this without any microphone. I wouldn't know unless you guys told me, but okay, let's get that up here. That's up, ready to go. All right, let's look in at your finance for the morning here. Another down day for the Dow, and that was everybody was down yesterday. All the indices, some of the major players did go up a little bit, but all the indices went down yesterday, and there's going to be some talk about that later on in the show, with some of its inflation and rate hikes too. So they're doing big-time damage control in this economy. Maybe the fuel prices will save them. I doubt it, but maybe they will. But there's some big-time damage control going on here, so we will see what's happening with that. The Dow ended yesterday at 34,033 points, rather. I keep thinking this is U.S. dollars because of the way that I read the Bitcoin. But it is 34,033 points, 0.67 points. That is down 265.66, or almost a full percent down throughout the day yesterday. So we will see what's happening with that. Let's check in on the Bitcoin as long as we're inflating everything here. The Bitcoin is at 39,180 US dollars and 40 US cents per Bitcoin right now. It's kind of holding steady at the bottom of the 40,000, top of the 30,000 mark. So, well, we'll see where it goes, and we'll see if that starts to shoot up once they hit that green energy to mine most of your Bitcoin. Thank you, Elon Musk, for that. On the fuel is looking like that's also staying steady. 268 is your low price leader. At the Woodman's at Gammon Road, also at the Quick Trip on Mineral Point. So both on the west side, it looks like as you go east, we start to see a little bit more. As you get closer to the interstate, I mean, that's pretty standard. But 289 is your high price over in Cambria, which is not actually in Madison, but one of the suburbs around there. So, but that is your gas area. Nice big smattering out there, so we'll see what's happening there. Let's see what IBD has to say. Archived, because they ad blocked me again. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones Futures slash Fed rate hike losses, Goldman in buy range, COVID vaccine plays CureVac crashes from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures fell slightly Thursday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. The stock market rally fell modestly on Wednesday as Federal Reserve policymakers signaled earlier interest rate hikes amid hotter inflation. The 10-year Treasury yield jumped following the latest Fed meeting. After the close, CureVac announced that its coronavirus vaccine candidate achieved low 47% efficacy rate. Phase 2B/3 trial, CVAC stock crashed, while BioNTech, Moderna, and Novavax rose slightly. The Federal Reserve still isn't in a hurry to change course, but new inflation targets, rate hike projections, and Fed Chief Jerome Powell's comments signaled that policymakers are getting closer to the actual Fed taper talk. Stock and bond markets got the message. The Dow Jones, S&P 500, and NASDAQ Composite, down slightly to modestly before the Fed meeting decision, retreated after the 2 p.m. announcement and Powell's comments, paring losses somewhat before the close. The 10-year Treasury yield jumped after hitting 3-month lows last week. The U.S. dollar rallied. Amid the market gyration, several bank stocks or financial ETFs flashed buy signals, including Signature Bank, Wells Fargo, which we'll be talking about them in the thing that I hate today, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and the triple-levered Direxion Daily Financial Bull ETF. Wells Fargo stock is on the IBD leaderboard. Boo! The triple-levered FAS is on Swing Trader. Goldman Sachs stock is on the IBD 50. This is not official financial advice, but this is advice. I will actually tell you this right now. If what I tell you at the end of the show is true, then get your money out of Wells Fargo if it's in it, because it's not about the finance at this point. It's about why would you give money to somebody who fucking hates you? And it is clear that they hate you. And like I said, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Let's look at the Fed meeting surprise. The central bank left interest rates and bond buying unchanged at its latest 2-day Fed meeting, but 11 of 18 policymakers now see 2 Fed rate hikes by the end of 2023 versus just 6 in March. Another 2 project 1 rate increase in 2023, while only 5 see no more before 2024. 7 policymakers expect a rate hike in 2022 versus 4 back in March. Dueling robots. Let me fix that quick. Thank you, dueling robots. Fed Chief Jerome Powell, in his post-meeting press conference, still sees current price pressures as transitory, but conceded inflation could be higher and more persistent than previously expected. The Federal Reserve now expects its most watched core inflation gauge to rise 3% in 2021 versus March's 2.2% projection. Policymakers see core inflation cooling to 2.1% next year, but higher than March's target of 2%. Okay. Fed Chief Jerome Powell said policymakers discussed if enough progress has been made to begin tapering asset purchases, but he said that substantial economic progress, seen as a code word that the Fed is ready for taper talk, remains a ways off. But this was the talking about meeting, Powell said. All right, let's look at the futures. Dow futures fell 0.2% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures sank 0.2%, and NASDAQ 100 futures declined 0.4%. Those are off their Wednesday night lows. The 10-year Treasury yield dipped to 1.56% after reaching 1.59% overnight. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella will take on the additional role of chairman. John Thompson will be the lead independent director. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, a lot of stuff going on here, and it looks like this looks a lot like damage control. It's the same thing with the reverse repo that we saw. Now we see the Fed meeting coming out and saying, okay, well, there's something wrong. We need to do something about this, but they're not ready to do something yet. I would not go anywhere near a stock right now. That is not official financial advice for legal purposes. All right. From CNBC, Dow falls 260 points after Fed signals 2 rate hikes in 2023. from Yoon Lee and Pippa Stevens. I think you're going to need to go a little bit before that. U.S. stocks dropped Wednesday after the Federal Reserve raised its inflation expectations and moved up the time frame on when it will next hike interest rates. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 265.66 points, or 0.8%, at 34,033.67. The blue chip average turned sharply lower after the Fed statement, falling as much as 382 points. The S&P 500 dipped 0.5% to 4223.70. Dragged down by utilities and consumer staples, the broad equity benchmark dropped as much as 1% in volatile trading as all 11 sectors fell into the red at one point. The Nasdaq Composite dipped 0.2% to 14,039.68 after retreating 1.2% at its session low. The policy-making Federal Open Market Committee indicated that rate hikes could come as soon as 2023, after signaling in March that it saw no increase until beyond that year. And do you know why, by the way? Because the rate hike is going to make it much more expensive to get a mortgage, to get a loan, to buy that first house, to buy a car, to take a student loan. The rate hike is going to affect all of those things. It's going to affect the prime mortgage rate too. Which that's going to hit your consumers in your pocketbook. And guess where they're waiting to do that? They're waiting to see what happens in December. I'm sorry, not in December, in November of 2020. Wow, I can't talk today. They're waiting to see what happens in November of 2022 before they do all this in 2023. Because they want to be able to pin this on the Republicans, who are probably going to take the Senate and definitely are going to take the House if they keep fucking around like this. They're going to slap the consumer market, people, especially the first-time home buyers, their constituents. They're going to slap them with a higher interest rate possibility, and possibly some of them aren't going to be able to get that home loan, even if the jobs do come back at that point. But they're going to wait to do it until after the midterms. They're going to wait to do it until Republicans control at least one aspect of the government. You watch. That is my official prediction at this point, given the numbers that are putting forward. This is not what the market expected, said James McCann, Aberdeen Standard Investments Deputy Chief Economist. The Fed is now signaling that rates will need to rise sooner and faster. This change in stance jars a little with the Fed's recent claims that the recent spike in inflation is temporary. Major equity benchmark traded off their lows of the day after Chairman Jerome Powell said at a news conference that the so-called dot plot projections that details members' forecasts for future rate increases should be taken with a big grain of salt and that the liftoff is well into the future. The central bank gave no indication as to when it will begin cutting back on its aggressive bond buying program, which also helped bolster markets. The Fed has been purchasing $120 billion worth of bonds each month, and the economy continues to recover from the pinko fucking pox. The Fed chief says the central bank will provide advance notice before announcing its move to taper asset purchases. You can think of this meeting that we had as the talking meeting, Powell said. In coming meetings, the company will continue to assess the economy's progress towards our goals. As we have said, we will provide advance notice before announcing any decision to make changes to our purchases. The Fed also raised its headline inflation expected to 3.4% for 2021, a full percentage point higher than the March projection, but the post-meeting statement continued to say that inflation pressures are transitory. So a lot of stuff going on here, but look at it. It's 2023 is what they're coming to do this. You're seeing runaway inflation right now, 5.5%, 5%, 6.5%, 4.2%. Runaway month after month after month. Many states still not putting people back to work. The unemployment rate still staying up around its 6% mark. In spite of 9 million job openings out there. And all of this is going to get pushed back until after the midterms. Gee, it's almost like they're planning something. All right. Let's get into the big news of the day. Starting with the summit in Geneva. And we will start today with the Associated Press. Practical work for summit for Biden. No punches or hugs from Amar Madani, Jonathan Lemire, and Vladimir Isashenkov. In Geneva, U.S. President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and Russia's Vladimir Putin exchanged cordial words and plotted modest steps on arms control and diplomacy, but emerged from their much-anticipated Swiss summit Wednesday largely where they started, with deep differences on human rights, cyber attacks, election interference, and more. The two leaders reached an important but hardly relationship-changing agreement to return their chief diplomats to Moscow and Washington after they were called home as the relationship deteriorated in recent months. And Biden and Putin agreed to start working on a plan to solidify their country's last remaining treaty limiting nuclear weapons. But their 3 hours of talks on the shores of Lake Geneva, but not the one that's in Wisconsin, left both men standing firmly in the same positions they had started in. Come on, man. I'm not confident he'll change his behavior, Biden said at a post-summit news conference. When he was asked about what evidence he saw that the former KGB agent, Putin, I wonder why that was important, would adjust his ways and actions. Well, what will change his behavior as the rest of the world reacts to them, and they diminish their standing in the world. I'm not confident in anything. Both the White House and the Kremlin had set low expectations. Going into the summit, they issued a joint statement after the conclusion that said their meeting showed practical work our two countries can do to advance our mutual interests and also benefit the world. But over and over again, Biden defaulted to, we'll find out, when assessing whether their discussions about nuclear power, cybersecurity, and other thorny issues will pay off. Back-to-back news conferences by Biden and Putin after the summit will also put stark relief that getting at the root of tensions between the U.S. and Russia will remain an enormously difficult task, including when the two sides, at least in public comments, sketch dramatically different realities on cyber matters. Biden came into the summit pushing Putin to clamp down on a surge of Russian-originated cybersecurity and ransomware attacks. Have we ever confirmed that that's actually Russian, by the way? I mean, is there any confirmation of that? That have targeted businesses and government agencies in the U.S. and around the globe. But when the summit ended, it wasn't evident that more of the superficial progress had been made. Biden said he made clear to Putin that if Russia crossed certain red lines, including going after major American infrastructure, his admin would respond, and the consequences of that would be devastating. There you go. Shake your nukes at another country with nukes. Putin, in turn, continued to insist that Russia had nothing to do with the cyber intrusions, despite the U.S. intelligence evidence that indicates otherwise. Most of the cyber attacks in the world are carried out from the cyber realm in the U.S., said Putin, adding that Canada, 2 Latin American countries he didn't name, and Britain to the list. While the U.S., Canada, and Britain all engage in cyber espionage, the most damaging cyber attacks on record have either come from state-backed Russian hackers or Russian-speaking ransomware criminals who operate with impunity in Russia and allied nations. Okay, can I see some evidence of that? Please. In fact, the worst have been attributed by the United States and the European Union to Russia's GRU military intelligence agency, including the NotPetya virus that did more than $10 billion in economic damage in 2017, hitting companies including shipping giant Maersk, the pharmaceutical company Merck, and food company Mondelez. But we didn't talk about that in 2017 because we were still trying to say that the Russian president was controlling the American president. Excuse me. Putin agreed at the summit that Russia will begin consultations with the U.S. on the matter and acknowledged that ransomware and cyber attacks are a big problem. Still, he maintained that the two countries just need to abandon various insinuations. Despite the clear differences, Biden insisted that progress had been made, scolding reporters for being too pessimistic during a chat on the tarmac just before he boarded Air Force One to return home. There is a value to being realistic and putting on an optimistic face, Biden said. The two leaders spent a great deal of time discussing cybersecurity, and he believed Putin understood the U.S. position. So there is a lot of information just already here, and there's still a lot more to go with this. But, I mean, for me, it sounds a lot more like Putin just went up there and over to Biden, and Biden made a bunch of threats, but it's all empty. He's an empty suit. And I still want to see if there is confirmation as to whether or not this was actually Russian attacks, or if this was something else. All right, let's grab one here from Fox Business. The title card of this episode, by the way, Biden gave Putin a list of 16 critical infrastructure entities off limits to cyber attacks. Those entities included energy, water, and more, from Morgan Phillips. President Biden told reporters on Wednesday that he gave President Putin a list of 16 critical infrastructure entities that are off limits to a Russian cyber attack. Those entities include energy, water, healthcare, emergency, chemical, nuclear, communications, government, defense, food, commercial facilities, IT, transportation, dams, manufacturing, and financial services. That's pretty much everything, isn't it? We'll find out whether we have a cybersecurity arrangement that begins to bring some order, Biden said. Putin, for his part, denied any involvement in a recent spate of cyber attacks that have hit major industries across the U.S. Hey, come on, man. I looked at him and I said, how would you feel if ransomware took on the pipelines from your oil fields? He said. It wouldn't matter. This is not just about our self-interest, the president said. Biden refused to say if military action was on the table if Russia was found to be responsible for a ransomware attack. In terms of the red line you laid down, is military response an option for a ransomware attack? The reporter asked. Thank you very much, Biden said as he abruptly tried to end the shorter than expected conference. No, we didn't talk about military response, he asked when pressed again. And I think that's what this video is. So let's have a listen to what's going on here in this 20-second clip. And I'm going to refill my cup while we're doing that.
Cybersecurity. I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack. Period. By cyber and any other means. I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities. 16 defined as critical infrastructure. Cybersecurity. I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period. By cyber or any other means. I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities. 16 defined as critical infrastructure.
I told them, but those things are off limits, man. Come on, man. Yeah, if you're into those 16, I mean, that's a pretty broad brush, though, with those 16 industries. I'm not going to lie. That's going to take care of most of the country. And the Logic bot actually comes out and puts it best here and says, you can hack our Facebook, but please don't do anything to increase gas prices again. We're doing a good enough job increasing gas prices, man. Come on. Via Getty says, so he gave Putin an instruction manual. Awesome. At least he didn't mean tweet. Yeah, no more mean tweets. But, I mean, regardless, I mean, you look at this too, and the other thing, they say cybersecurity, infrastructure, this kind of fun stuff that's out there. Hey, I mean, he could come back out and hack out Contemporary or Freedom Scoop or something like that. He could get rid of us, but hey, you better not go after those gas prices. Like I said, if you're not in those 16 industries, you're on your own. Biden, in another moment, said that he didn't make any threats, but rather simple assertions. Biden stressed the need for both nations to take action against criminals that conduct ransomware activities in their territory. Putin, in his own press conferences after the meeting, claimed that American sources say that a majority of the cyber attacks in the world came from the U.S. The number of organizations affected by ransomware has jumped 102% compared to the beginning of 2020 and shows no signs of slowing down, according to a research note last month from IT security firm Check Point. Both Colonial Pipeline and JBS Holdings, the meat processing company, have been subject to major cyber attacks where against the guidance of the FBI, they paid millions of dollars in ransom to resume operations. I still am I mean, I'm tinfoily enough about this that I can say that I think that this happened, and this came right from the FBI and the federal government. With as much egg as they have on their face at this point, this would not surprise me. If you're trying to put the squeeze to people so they beg for more government intervention and more government assistance, then what are you going to do? You're going to go after their food and their fuel. And that seems to be what the Biden admin, the people pulling the Biden strings, are looking for, is to get more people to call for more federal intervention. That's what it looks like to me. It's a little scary to think that the U.S. government would do that to its own people, but I mean, we've seen governments do that to their own people all the time. Interestingly enough, there is not a lot of video of a lot of this either, by the way. That's one of the things because I spent a good deal of time this morning. I actually got up early looking for video of some of this conference, and I got almost nothing except for this little 20-second podium talk up here. But for the most part, I mean, nothing going back and forth between the two of them. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room, though, and just come back and see, okay, what are we talking about with the Nord Stream 2, which is now completely unsanctioned and was sanctioned under Trump. The cybersecurity thing. Could Biden hold a coherent sentence? What actually happened here? I mean, both men say that this is good news for each country, but I don't trust it. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Biden loosely warns of consequences for Russia if Navalny dies in prison as GOP lawmakers press for more sanctions. From Charlotte Pence Bond. On Wednesday, President Biden said that he discussed the imprisonment of Putin opposition leader Alexei Navalny while meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a press conference following the meetings, Biden was asked about what he told Putin would happen if Navalny were to die in prison. I made it clear to him that I believe the consequences of that would be devastating for Russia, Biden said without expanding further. He added, what do you think happens when he's saying it's not about hurting Navalny? All the stuff he says to rationalize the treatment of Navalny, and then he dies in prison. It's about trust, man. It's about their ability to influence other nations in a positive way. Biden appeared to note that it would not be in Russia's best interest if Navalny were to die in prison, and that other countries would not be as interested in working with Russia if they have concerns about the country's handling of certain situations. Why? Republican lawmakers took a different route with regard to Russia, sending a letter to Biden on Wednesday asking him to impose the legally mandated second round of sanctions required by the U.S. Chemical and Biological Weapons Control and Warfare Elimination Act of 1991, or shortened to the CBW Act, because that's a big mouthful right there, to hold the Putin regime accountable for its continued use of chemical weapons and flagrant disregard for international norms and fundamental rights. The lawmakers stated that Biden admin had expanded sanctions that already existed on Russia when it took action earlier this year after determining that the Russian government had used chemical weapons against Navalny. They said, however, that the CBW Act requires that the admin put forward another grouping of sanctions at this time unless Biden tells Congress in writing that Putin regime is no longer using chemical weapons in violation of international law, has provided reliable assurances it will not in the future engage in such activities, and is willing to allow on-site inspections by internationally recognized impartial observers. The letter was signed by Representative Michael McCall of Texas and Senator James Risch of Idaho, who argued that since Russia has not taken any of the aforementioned actions, Biden's admin needs to impose more sanctions on Putin's regime. They noted that they are concerned that the delay of imposition of these mandatory sanctions appears to be part of the larger pattern to avoid confronting the Putin regime before the Geneva summit. So, they want more sanctions. Biden says that if Navalny dies in prison, there's going to be problems. I don't see there being problems. I see Putin just walking all over the admin again, as he usually does. Come on, man! And, well, that's going to be it. All right, from CBS. Biden says, I did what I came to do, man, in Putin meeting. From Catherine Watson, Tucker Reels, Melissa Quinn, and Carolyn Linton. President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin met Wednesday for the first time since Mr. Biden took office at a summit in Geneva that the Russian president described as constructive, while Mr. Biden said, "He did what I came to do, man." Both leaders addressed reports in separate news conferences after the roughly 3 hours of meetings that included discussions of cybersecurity and arms control. Among other topics, the two leaders released a joint statement after their respective news conferences affirming that even during periods of tension, they can make progress on ensuring predictability in the strategic sphere, reducing the risk of armed conflicts and the threat of nuclear war. Biden told reporters that Putin knows I'll take action, man, in working to stop Russia from engaging in malign activities, like interfering in U.S. elections. I still need to see proof of that, by the way. The only thing that we know for sure is that the 2016 election was absolutely hacked and went as bad as it could possibly go. And the 2020 election was the safest and most secure election in history. And Biden actually got more votes than even Barack Obama and is the most popular president in U.S. history. Engaging in hacking attacks like those targeting SolarWinds and ransomware attacks on U.S. companies. Mr. Biden added that Putin knows that there are consequences, man, and said Russia's credibility shrinks when it participates in the cyber attacks. Still, when pressed by reporters on whether he was confident Putin would change his behavior, Mr. Biden said, I'm not confident in anything, man. The president also said Putin knows there will be consequences if jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny dies. Putin, meanwhile, at his press conference, did not address Navalny by name, but said Navalny had deliberately broken the law and wanted to be arrested when he returned to Russia after receiving treatment in Germany for his near-fatal poisoning. Navalny, the U.S. and Western countries blame his poisoning on Russia. The Russian president skirted off the topic of Ukraine after NATO affirmed Ukraine's sovereignty at its recent meeting in Brussels. Addressing reporters on the tarmac before boarding Air Force One, Mr. Biden apologized for losing his temper with CNN reporter Caitlin Collins, yeah, we'll be talking about that in just a sec, saying he was being a wise guy, man. Mr. Biden said his first foreign trip showed America's back, and he owes the world leaders a debt of gratitude for backing him in Putin talks. Yeah, he got short with a CNN reporter, and I think that was kind of funny too, to be completely honest. So let's go talk about that. Please allow ads to support our journalism. No, your journalism sucks, and the only reason you're getting views right now is because I'm doing this. All right, Osama bin Laden's niece protests Biden-Putin summit with Trump won flag. From Olafimahi... All right, let's try this again. Olaf Imihan is what I'm going to go with for that. Ocean. Let me know in the comments if you would have pronounced that any differently. The niece of Osama bin Laden on Wednesday protested the Biden-Putin summit with a Trump won flag. Video surfaced on Twitter Wednesday showing Noor bin Laden on a boat with others holding a Trump won flag in Geneva, the site of the summit. Noor bin Laden is pushing the unfounded claim that former President Trump won the 2020 election. Yes, this is totally objective. This is from the recount. Today in WTF, Noor bin Laden, Osama bin Laden's niece, protests the Biden-Putin summit in Geneva with a Trump won flag.
Elastigano.
You know, I would think being the niece of Osama bin Laden, she would have more around her head. I would think she would be more covered up. She responded to the initial tweet by saying, "Damn right." Noor bin Laden, a strong supporter of Trump, has been protesting in Geneva the past few days, with Swiss police threatening to arrest her over her stunts. She did an interview with InfoWars afterwards in which she questioned whether Switzerland was a free country, adding that when Vice President Harris visited Guatemala last week, people there were able to protest without issue. This comes as both President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin met in Geneva on Wednesday in a crucial summit over rising tensions between the two countries. And, I mean, there's a little bit to go with on this. There's a little bit to talk about with this. And, I mean, a little bit of realism coming from the fact that she's saying this. And obviously, Susan, I'm not saying that Trump won because 2020 was the most secure election in history. And Biden got more votes than any other president in history. He is the most popular president ever, honk honk. But, I mean, first and foremost, if for whatever reason, in a simulation somewhere, there was a chance that there was foul play in the 2020 election, it would be on a bin Laden to come out and say that because it was the administration that Biden worked under before that sent out the SEAL team that killed her uncle. But once again, I would expect the niece, the daughter of the brother of Osama bin Laden, to be a little bit more burqa'd and be a little bit more traditionalist. So that's kind of interesting to see. I like that. I actually do. All right, from Politico. Biden gets heated during post-Putin press conference. Dude, the guy's got fucking dementia here. From Nick Niedzwiadak. Wow. We've got all the complicated names today. I try. I do. President Biden conceded that he lost his composure on Wednesday towards the end of his post-summit debriefing with reporters in Geneva. And though he later apologized for being a wise guy with a reporter, he continued to attack members of the media for their negativity before heading back to the U.S. The flare-up came after CNN's Caitlin Collins shouted a question to Biden, asking why he was optimistic that Russian President Vladimir Putin would alter his provocative behavior following their high-profile meeting on Wednesday. "Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?" Collins asked as Biden was walking off the stage after his outdoor news conference. I'm not confident. Where the hell? What do you do all the time?" Biden said as he changed course and began walking toward where the group of reporters was gathered. Oh, I bet you everybody in the admin who knew that his medicine was wearing off was shitting their pants when he started walking towards there. I want to see if I can find a video of that. Hang on. Yeah, there it is. All right, let's get this one back up here. No, god damn it, go away. Let's pull this over here. Put this right next to where we're going here.
I said.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks, he downplayed human rights abuses, he even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin framed?
You don't understand that, you're in the wrong business.
It's a summit with China.
If you don't understand that, you're in the wrong business. For those of you who didn't hear that, which kind of translates to me like, if you don't know whether you're for me or for Trump at this point, then you're not black. You ain't black, I'm sorry.
Cool, we need to load quickly. Let's go. Quickly, cool.
I guarantee you every single one of his handlers was shitting their pants when he started walking back towards them because he was ready to go up off script. And I mean, that's one of the things is that the overly aggressive thing, that's an indicator of Alzheimer's. It really is. I'm sorry. I know it's not cool to say. Let's look at this one more
Why are you
time.
so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time?
So-
When did I say I was confident?
What do you do all day, man?
I
said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine-
what I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks, he downplayed human rights abuses, he even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how
Yeah, there is. And we'll probably look at this one from Ducey too in just a second. But yeah, let's keep going with this. Let's see what we've got going on with that. Anyway, so yeah, that's the guy that has the nuclear codes right there that can fly off the handle like that. All right, from the Daily Wire. Left-wing reporter slams Biden for losing temper over question. Maybe you're in the wrong business, man. A left-wing reporter slammed President Biden Wednesday over his outburst directed at cable news reporter earlier in the day, suggesting that perhaps Biden was in the wrong business if he could not answer basic questions from the media. Ooh. Olivia Nuzzi tweets out, if you're the most powerful person in the world and you can't field questions from the media without losing your temper, maybe you're in the wrong business. Ooh. What kind of example does it set for other countries when the president of the U.S. insults a member of the free press on an international stage for asking a fair question in good faith? Ooh. Nuzzi's tweet was in reference to an outburst that Biden had with CNN reporter Caitlin Collins after Collins asked him a question following his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which we watched the video here. This is worth watching again. I'm sorry. This is the leader of the free world.
What if you're not one of the 16? What did he say about Paul Whelan and Trevor?
Americans I have hope for.
Say again, we can't hear you.
I said the families of the detained Americans came up and we discussed it. We're going to follow through with that discussion. I am not going to walk away on that.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time?
So-
when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine-
what I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks, he downplayed human rights abuses, he even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin
You don't understand that. You're in the wrong business.
All right, and here comes the apology. I shouldn't have been such a wise guy with that last answer I gave, Biden later said before he boarded Air Force One, because in Biden's world, it's still 1951. Biden later again took another shot at the press as he fielded more questions, saying, "Look, man, to be a good reporter, you've got to be negative. You got to have a negative view of life. And it seems to me that the way you never ask a positive question," Biden continued. President Biden, how much do you love your dogs? President Biden, tell us, how much do you love your wife? He's got nothing but softballs since he got in here, and that was a fair question in good faith. CNN correspondent Jeff Elaine later lamented on live television that the media has not seen Biden answer questions like the one Collins asked without his aides screaming at him to stop. Yeah, even CNN is coming out here and telling you that there's a problem here when he won't come back and answer questions. There is a problem here. This is an issue. I've never seen a president, covering the last four of them, who is so protected by his aides in terms of often not wanting him to answer some questions. Zeleny continued. And, I mean, I don't want to bring up the former guy right now, but regardless, that this actually does have a point here. And people always said, Trump is this, Trump is that, Trump is mean, Trump is stupid. And, a lot of us wish that sometimes an aide would come in and stop him from getting in front of that camera, from getting in front of the microphone, especially when somebody was trying to trigger him. And they triggered him a lot. A lot of us wish that they would shut him down for that. But regardless, I mean, he's right. The aides just let him go and do his thing. And under Biden, they stop him and they pull him away when he goes back to start. Like, usually when he goes on to one of these little tirades and uses 1950s slang, they pull him back and they say, okay, come on, Grandpa, it's time for your medicine again. They come and yank him back. And people look at this and say, this is fine, this is normal, we have no more mean tweets. All right, let's grab one from the New York Post. A little bit more Russia stuff. We got a lot of Russia stuff today. Russia provokes U.S. and largest military exercise since the Cold War before Biden-Putin meeting. From Emily Jacobs. Russian ships are conducting the largest military exercises since the Cold War off the coast of Hawaii, sending the U.S. Air Force scrambling hours before President Biden meets with Wednesday with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The exercises conducted by the Russian Navy in the Pacific Ocean, 300 to 500 miles west of Hawaii, include long-range bombers, surface ships, and anti-submarine aircraft. The U.S. Air Force scrambled F-22 stealth fighters from Hawaii in response to the exercises. The bombers, U.S. officials said Tuesday, did not enter the air defense identification zone and were not intercepted. The exercises come on the heels of Biden's highly anticipated summit with Putin on Wednesday in Geneva, Switzerland. There are some of the photos of the military exercises. Much has been made about the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders during Biden's presidency, especially given the tense state of U.S.-Russia relations. Biden on Monday walked back his previous description of Putin as a killer, calling him a bright, tough, and a worthy adversary ahead of their upcoming summit meeting. During a news conference at the annual NATO meeting in Brussels, Biden said he answered honestly last year when he said, "I do," in response to a question about whether he thought the former KGB agent was a killer. Yeah, we're going through a lot of history right now for this, but I mean, it is pretty brazen that Russia would come out and make this military exercise way out in the Pacific, right up as they're coming to do this. I do have to wonder if they were trying to push him into pushing that little red button as they were going, or trying to attack these as they're coming just outside of identification space. I'm not sure. I don't know. But it's telling that they were doing this right away. Let's grab one. Another one here from the press conference here from Fox News. Biden denies he's old friends with China's Xi, saying world questioning Beijing on COVID-19 origin probe. From Thomas Barabi. President Biden pushed back on the assertion that he and Chinese Xi Jinping were old friends at a press conference on Wednesday, arguing that the international community was questioning Beijing's comments to a transparent investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy pressed Biden on whether he'd pressure China following the president's summit with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Geneva. Biden has made frequent references to his long-standing relationship with Xi, dating back to the Obama administration. Do we have video of this? No. Do we have video of this on the tab that I kept over here? No. Let's see if there's video of this over here. No, they don't show a video of it, unfortunately. They just keep showing the Caitlin Collins one. That's lame. I would have loved to see that one. You've spoken many times about how you have spent perhaps more time with President Xi than any world leader. Ducey asked the president, is there going to come a time when you might call him old friend, and ask him to open up China to the World Health Organization investigators who are trying to get to the bottom of the pinko fucking pox? Come on, man. Let's get one thing straight. We all know each other. We're not old friends, Biden said. It's just pure business. Biden met with Xi several times. When he was vice president, he claimed on multiple occasions that he has traveled 17,000 miles with Xi and developed a rapport with him. In December of 2013, Xi referred to Biden as his old friend during an event the former vice president attended in Beijing. Biden referenced his friendship with Xi at that same event. Lawmakers have called Biden to pressure China over its handling of the pandemic, amid mounting calls for further investigation of the theory that the commie coup may have originated through a lab accident in Wuhan. Last month, the president said intelligence officials coalesced around theories that the pandemic originated through a lab accident or through human contact with infected animals, but had yet to reach a definitive conclusion. He directed the U.S. intelligence community to conduct further investigations and report on its findings within 90 days. So, yeah, I mean, Ducey will push a little bit. And, I mean, we saw the same thing with the press pool and Jim Acosta and the Donald. Hey, you're friends with Putin now, so go tell him to stop and cut this out. And what are you going to do? And look over here and look at me. So, I mean, it's also a fair assessment with the fact that Hunter has business dealings in China, and we know about them, to ask whether or not there is a rapport and a friendship, especially given the fact that there was a friendship in the last term when he was vice president. It's fair to ask. All right, let's grab one from Yahoo News. Biden bristles at Fox News reporters. A question on China from Alexander Nazarian. Is there a video in this one? There is not. At a press conference following the meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva on Wednesday, President Biden disputed a journalist's characterization of Chinese President Xi Jinping as an old friend who might be persuaded to allow an international investigation into the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. Let's get something straight, man. We know each other well. We're not old friends, Biden said. It's just pure business. Biden had several sharp exchanges with journalists after he concluded his bilateral meeting with Putin, including an especially heated one with CNN's Caitlin Collins. Before boarding Air Force One on his way back to Washington, he approached a scrum of reporters and apologized for being a wise guy. The characterization of Biden and Xi as something other than adversaries came courtesy of Fox News reporter Peter Ducey, who has become a White House adversary in recent months. Ducey pressed Biden on whether his long-standing relationship with the Chinese leader could help as the U.S. and other nations try to find out how, as researchers believe, the pandemic originated in the Chinese city of Wuhan sometimes in late 2019. Well, no, they're just pissed at him because he's not coming back and asking, Mr. Biden, tell us in full, honest terms, how much do you love Jill Biden? They're pissed at him for that. And, I mean, Caitlin Collins actually doing some sort of journalism as well. So, regardless, yes, we will continue to see more coming from this. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about the vice president for a little bit. From the New York Post, Harris hosts dinner for female senators, but border talk missing from the menu. From Mark Moore. Vice President Kamala Harris hosted a dinner party for a bipartisan group of female senators at her official Washington, D.C. residence on Tuesday, amid a tense political atmosphere of critical votes in Congress looming and a border crisis raging on Harris's watch. She invited the 24 senators, 16 Democrats, and 8 Republicans to share the meal at the Naval Observatory against the backdrop of intense negotiations over President Biden's agenda in Congress. Senator Debbie Stabenow posted pictures of the gathering on her Twitter account showing the group of senators sitting around the table. The women dined on a summer garden salad with hearts of palm, avocado, and grape tomatoes, and a roasted mahi-mahi with ginger, cilantro, basmati rice and grilled vegetables, Politico reported. Warm strawberry rhubarb crostades with vanilla ice cream were served for dessert. Another photo showed Harris addressing the group with Senator Lisa Murkowski seated next to her. 3 senators, Cindy Hyde-Smith, Cynthia Lummis, and Kyrsten Sinema, did not attend. Marsha Blackburn, who broke the bread with the other women, appeared later on Fox News and lauded Harris for being a gracious host, but said a substantive policy discussion wasn't on the menu. But if she had brought up policies, I would have loved that. I would have loved to have said, Madam Vice President, you need to get the border. You need to talk to the Border Patrol, Blackburn told Sean Hannity. Tuesday marked the 82nd day since Biden announced Harris would be the administration's point person on responding to the crisis of record illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border. In that period, Harris has yet to visit the border. Earlier this month, Harris did travel to Mexico and Guatemala to speak with the leaders about the root causes of illegal immigration, a trip that led to some questionable and cringeworthy comments from the vice president. But of course, she's not going to go to the border itself because then she has to face down the fact that they don't have a handle on what's going on in these facilities. And that's one of the key notes to note when you come to realize that they don't have a handle on this. Because if they had a handle on it, if they actually had it under somewhat of control, then she would be there because she would want the photo op to say, look, okay, we're clearing out these facilities out here and all these kids are getting out somewhere where they can have a better life for people, rather than being wrapped up like burritos in space blankets. So that's your big indicator right there. And I mean, these people are having a dinner that you and I can afford maybe twice a year because we're working people. Some of you are working a little bit better off than I am, and I've seen some of the plating that you guys do and put on Twitter, but I mean, this is a dinner that is like a treat for you and I, something that we go out for a very, very special occasion for, and they're just throwing it around like this. You gotta love that. All right, from the AZ Central, the Arizona Sun, Senator Kyrsten Sinema misses Vice President Kamala Harris's dinner, from Yvonne Winget Sanchez. Senator Kyrsten Sinema did not attend a bipartisan dinner hosted by Vice President Kamala Harris on Tuesday night, making her the lone Democrat and one of 2 senators to miss the gathering. Harris invited all of these senators, Senate's 24 female senators, 16 Democrats, and 8 Republicans, to the Naval Observatory for the event, which harkened an earlier era where lawmakers put aside their political differences in the name of collegiality. A spokesperson for Sinema told the Arizona Republic that Sinema did not attend because of her broken foot. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi also did not attend the meal, where senators dined on mahi-mahi and strawberry rhubarb crostades. Sinema's absence comes as she is serving as a lead negotiator on bipartisan infrastructure talks in the hopes of striking a deal on an issue central to President Joe Biden and the Harris agenda. Sinema, a centrist Democrat who, along with Joe Manchin and other Democrats, is eliminating the legislative filibuster, has faced increasing pressure from the Democratic base to change her stance, even though she has said she will not do so. Biden recently acknowledged the challenge of passing voting rights protections through Congress, given Manchin and Sinema's stance on the filibuster, which requires 60 votes to advance major legislation. In that speech, he appeared to call out Sinema and Manchin, though he did not do so by name. So, it doesn't appear that this was a slight against either Sinema or the vice president. This appears that this was just wrong place at wrong time. As far as Cindy Hyde-Smith, I can't say that, because they don't give me any details on that. But, I mean, yeah, if you're dealing with a broken foot, which I don't know why she has a broken foot, but if you're dealing with a broken foot, you're obviously not going to be able to get out to the dinner like that. And I don't know what the accommodations are for the Naval Observatory either. So, a lot of stuff going on with that, but it looks like, yeah, this was just a regular, I can't make it because of scheduling conflict kind of thing. Nothing big and major going on with that. All right. Let's see, what else do we got? From WKYC Studios, Hillary Clinton endorses Shontel Brown for 11th Congressional District seat. From Meg Hambach, yeah, it looks like Ohio is in the crosshairs right now, and they want to make sure that they take Ohio for this upcoming election here. Coming out of WKYC, Chantel Brown has picked up a key endorsement in the race for the 11th Congressional District. Former Secretary of State and 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton endorsed Brown Wednesday. She made the endorsement on her Twitter account. I'm proud to endorse Chantel M. Brown for Congress in the Ohio special election. Chantel made history as the first black woman to chair her county Dem party, and she'll work to help her state and our country recover from COVID, Secretary Clinton said in a tweet, which you can see below. Upon receiving the endorsement, Brown sent out a statement that read, Secretary Clinton has been a champion for working families for her entire career, and I am incredibly honored to receive her endorsement. As a volunteer for her campaign in 2016, I was inspired by her message to put women at the head of the table finally. I believe we need more leaders in office who are focused on results over rhetoric. That means a congresswoman who will fight for affordable, quality, universal health care, an end to gun violence, and jobs that can actually support a family in Washington. My priority will always be to put Northeast Ohio first, said Brown. Which, I mean, that's all well and good. And if that's what she wants to do and go back and represent Ohio, then, okay, I can put the endorsement behind that. But, I mean, as far as the Clinton thing goes, and I noticed that this Anthony Strites that seems to be running for Ohio 4, who's also in focus, I threw some stuff back behind him. I mean, Act Blue is throwing a ton of money around the guy that's running in New York 4 to try and take out Jim Jordan. Because he's Jim Jordan, obviously. That's the reason why. But they're trying to do so and throw a ton of money at an R+20 district. But I noticed that Clinton is not endorsing him. The Clinton thing, that's a poison pill for your campaign, and this actually might hurt Chantel a little bit. But given the fact that this is a Cleveland district, I couldn't find the demographics as to whether this was D or R plus or minus for this district, but I've got a feeling that this is probably a D, given the fact that it encompasses most of Cleveland. This is probably a D plus at least double digits district. So given that fact, I mean, the Clinton poison pill is not going to affect this woman the same way it would affect other candidates who would possibly be going into a more contested race. But it does look like Ohio is going to be the one that they're going to try to focus on. So we'll see what happens with that. After they chase all the jobs out of Ohio, they're going to try to focus on it. All right, from the New York Post. White House calls Capitol riot terrorist attack, endorses extremist internet purge. From Stephen Nelson. The White House on Tuesday released a report that designates the January 6th Capitol riot as a domestic terrorist attack and endorses an internet purge of extremist content. That's freedom of speech. The description is likely to draw stiff disagreement from allies of former President Trump, who say that the riot, which disrupted the certification of President Biden's victory... No, it didn't. He was certified yet that day. Where's the disruption? Everyone went back to work after an hour. Okay, they lost an hour. Has been used to facilitate political censorship. It's not just Trump. I'm telling you right now. Because people who hated Trump, who carried that porcupine logo on a patch on every fucking thing that they own, are going to be lumped right along in with anybody who wants to oppose the Biden admin because they oppose the establishment. This is not about political censorship in the name of Donald Trump. This is about political censorship in the name of, hey, you hate Biden, you must be a racist. The Biden admin report also calls for beefed up cooperation between the feds and private internet companies and instructs the Justice Department to review whether to request a new anti-domestic terrorism law. There it is, right there. Another law, another security law, another Patriot Act, right there for you. In spite of the fact that they did one right away, as soon as the selfie fest happened. And I am still concerned, by a lot, that this was led by a government agency, given the fact that there was a 20,000-page domestic security bill out the next day. 20,000 pages on January 7th. 20,000 pages of bill the very next day after all this happened. And a lot of people questioning who was in the leadership of the group. Now, yes, we had the Vincent Jameses and the Red Elephants out there in the front, but a lot of this was monkey see, monkey do. A lot of this was monkey see, monkey do. I have a lot of questions. I do. But regardless, this was not a riot. This was not an insurrection. This was a selfie fest. I know a person who was on the ground who just got let in by the Capitol Police. I watched it happen on camera. They opened the door and let him in. Now that video has been purged from the internet. But if you want to go check out my friend, Stephen Ignoramus, I watched it happen. The Capitol riot is described as an example of domestic terrorism alongside the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, which was an act of domestic terrorism, which killed an estimated 75 to 300 people, and the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, which killed 168. And the Capitol Selfie Fest, which killed one. And she was killed by an agent of the state. One person was killed in the Capitol Selfie Fest. One person was killed in the non-insurrection. Nobody else died. The only person who died was killed by the state. Domestic terrorist attacks in the U.S. also have been committed frequently by those opposing the government institutions. In 1995, the largest single act of domestic terrorism in the U.S. history, an anti-government violent extremist detonated a bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children, and injuring hundreds of others, the report says, and that person should have got the chair. I don't remember what his actual punishment was, but yeah, I mean, the lethal injection was not good enough. Or was too good for that guy. Give him the chair and make him fucking suffer because he killed kids. If you killed kids, then you need to suffer. In 2016, an anti-authority violent extremist ambushed, shot, and killed 5 police officers in Dallas. He was a BLM activist. In 2017, a lone gunman wounded 4 people at a congressional baseball practice. He was a Bernie supporter. And just months ago, on January 6, 2021, Americans witnessed a selfie fest. That's what we saw on January 6th. People sitting down, kneeling down with the Capitol Police and taking pictures. And one person died. All right. So that's what we see coming back off of this. A little bit of the FBI involvement with this as well, from Politico. Shocking failure. Pentagon and FBI come under fire for January 6th response. From Nicholas Wu, Nick needs... I pronounced this correctly earlier today. Needs Deck and Josh Gerstein. Days before the January 6th Capitol insurrection, social media company Parler flagged dozens of worrying messages to the FBI, warnings that appeared to go unanswered. Don't be surprised if we take the Capitol building, says a post from Parler user who concluded, Trump needs to use chaos to enact the Insurrection Act. At a House Oversight Committee hearing on Tuesday, Chair Carolyn Maloney disclosed the message one of dozens of Parler sent to the FBI on January 2nd, 4 days before the selfie fest. FBI Director Christopher Wray said he did not recall hearing of the post, but said that some were routed to FBI squads investigating domestic terrorism. The FBI is now reviewing that information was handled appropriately, Wray said. Wray and the FBI were not the only ones pressed by lawmakers about missed warning signals. At the faulty response to the January 6th attack by supporters of the former president, the lack of preparation by both the Pentagon and the Capitol Police's emergency units also came under fire. As lawmakers continue to reckon with the security failures that allowed an invasion of the Capitol, they flew the Confederate flag, puppy! That thing, while they voted to certify the presidential election. Democrats hammered 2 Pentagon officials over the delay in the response to the insurrection. In her opening remarks, Maloney said the Pentagon took far too long to act on January 6th, despite warning signs and pleas from other law enforcement leaders that day. This is a shocking failure, she said. Yeah, it is a shocking failure because the writing was on the wall that something was going to happen. I didn't even think that this was going to be possible because I figured the National Guard would be sitting there with rifles trained as this went along, as they should have been, because there was enough chatter on the ground that they were going to try and do something stupid. And they did try to do something stupid. And you'll notice that during the certification, there were tons and tons of failures left and right. But hey, they didn't have a single failure when anointed Messiah, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., was anointed as the Messiah. And he put his hand on the Bible and said, I swear, man, to uphold the thing, you know? Come on, man. So help me, Corn Pop. Despite previous law enforcement officials' testimony that Army Staff Director Lieutenant General Walter Piatt recommended against deploying troops to the Capitol because the optics of sending armed soldiers, both Piatt and General Charles Flynn denied using the term optics in discussing the Pentagon's response to the Capitol Selfie Fest. I did not use the word optics, nor did I hear the word used during the call on January 6, 2021, in response to any request for support during the planning and execution of that support. Flynn told lawmakers, adding that he did not hear other Army leaders use the word. Charles Flynn is the brother of Michael Flynn, who served as the National Security Advisor for Trump and has disputed Trump's election loss to President Biden. Representative Glenn Grothman pressed Wray on whether the FBI has arrested any people who entered the Capitol on January 6 who may not have realized that they lacked permission to do so. He described it as breaking the law without having any knowing that they're breaking the law. Yeah, ignorance of the law is no excuse. But regardless, there were probably maybe a handful of people who were being violent with the rest of this. The rest of these are criminal trespass charges. And yet they're being way overcharged. I've read one of the arrest reports of somebody who is accused of violently trying to stop a government function who had a cell phone in each hand at the time. And he wasn't using the cell phones to bash somebody over the head. He was just sitting back there recording the entire incident for posterity. Grothman said his constituents were worried that some individuals swept up in the 500 or so federal criminal cases related to the Capitol Selfie Fest did nothing other than walk into the building with consent or lack of resistance from the Capitol Police. Yeah, they opened the door and they let them in. And now they're federal criminals. Interesting how that works. I can't really say, said Wray. What I would say is that people who have been arrested because they violated federal criminal law. We have 500 arrests, and they range in all sorts of variations in facts and circumstances. More than 100 of those cases involve only misdemeanor charges and no allegations of damage to property or assaulting police. Yeah, probably because a prosecutor looked at this and said, I can't fucking charge this. Hey, who wrote this arresting document? I can't charge this. I will never make this stick, and this guy's going to walk free without even paying a fine. Come on, somebody do something about this. Yeah, this was not an insurrection. As much as they try to role play and cosplay the fact that this was an insurrection, and I'm talking about the people that try to get into it too, because a lot of them are saying that. I work with a guy who said, well, they better do the right thing about all this situation and make the right decision on the president. Otherwise, we're going to go down there. And oddly enough, he didn't go down there. He was at work the same day that this was happening. But these other people were there. All right, from Newsweek. FBI raids home of Netflix actor seen inside Capitol on January 6th with far-right activists. From Cami Pedroja. FBI agents raided the home of a Netflix series actor last week who was seen inside the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th Selfie Fest. The home of Siaka Massaquoi, who appeared on the Netflix series Ratched, was raided by FBI agents in the early hours of the morning last Thursday, although no arrests were made, authorities say. In an email with Newsweek on Monday, FBI spokesperson Laura Emeler confirmed that the FBI executed a federal search warrant at a North Hollywood residence on Thursday, June 10th. It was not yet clear Monday why the raid was conducted, but the FBI declined to comment further because they've got egg on their fucking face, stating that the warrant and its affidavit remain sealed. Massaquoi, along with friend Brian Burks, who was also present for the raid, described 20-some FBI agents with assault rifles in a video in Hollywood, where no one's allowed to own a gun, posted to Instagram shortly after the raid on his North Hollywood home. The agent served a warrant clad in riot gear at about 6 a.m. Thursday morning. Yeah, they did this for optics. Oh, well, he might be armed like this, and he might have this in it. No, he isn't going to have this, you fucking morons. You come out here to scare people from ever trying to stand up against the government again. That's what you're trying to do. To make people scared to ever redress a grievance or stand up against the government. This was not about arresting somebody who might have had some sort of involvement with this. This was about making a statement. Spartan, there was no fraud election, by the way. This was totally the safest and most secure election in history. Honk, honk. Biden is the most popular president who ever lived. Honk. Hold on, I gotta see this, because somebody just accused me of being racist, I think. I'm not talking about racists. Well, whatever. Bye. I did nothing wrong on the 6th, Massaquoi said. They can paint something as wrong, but I did nothing violent. Massaquoi said can be seen participating in the January 6th riots in the video posted to social media by Tim Gionette, the alt-right activist known online as Baked Alaska. He's not alt-right. Who live-streamed much of the riots. Gionette's video showed Massaquoi standing inside the Capitol building, smiling and filming the rioters and the Capitol Police. Okay, what did he do that was violent? Burke said in the Instagram video Thursday that he was not at the riots, but was being investigated by association. That's literally where we're at, Burke said. You don't even have to be guilty of something, but if you by chance know somebody, you're guilty of something because of them. If you're in a group with them on the social media app, Massaquoi added. Yeah, I'm a little surprised the FBI hasn't come to talk to me about, well, I'm not going to say his name, but you guys know who he is. I'm surprised nobody's come to talk to me about that because, you know, Freedom Scoop. And he said that right in his video, too, when we got 40,000 hits on the website that day. So, I don't know, but, yeah, this was, one person died at the Capitol Selfie Fest, and she was killed by the state. All right, let's talk about inflation from CNBC. The Fed moves up its timeline for rate hikes as inflation rises, from Jeff Cox. We talked a little bit about this at the top of the show, but I thought this deserved its own segment because this is what's going to affect us as we go forward. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday considerably raised its expectations for inflation this year and brought forward the time frame on when it will next raise interest rates. However, the central bank gave no indication as to when it will begin cutting back on its aggressive bond buying program, though Fed Chairman Jerome Powell acknowledged that officials discussed the issue at the meeting. You can think of this meeting that we had as the talking about meeting, Powell said in a phrase that recalled a statement he made a year ago that the Fed wasn't thinking about raising rates. As expected, the Policymaking Federal Open Market Committee unanimously left its benchmark short-term borrowing rate anchored at near zero, but officials indicated that rate hikes could come as soon as 2023 after saying in March that it saw no increase until at least 2024. The so-called dot plot of individual member expectations pointed to 2 hikes in 2023. And yes, I talked about this at the top of the show. The headline inflation expectation is raised to 3.4%, a full percentage point higher than the March projection. The post-meeting statement continued to say that inflation pressures are transitory. The raised expectations come amid the biggest rise in consumer prices in about 13 years. And yep, they're going to wait and they're going to raise the rates after the midterms, because now they know who's going to be coming in, and they're going to know where this is going to go to. But my biggest thought behind this is the fact that the interest rate hike is going to be something they can blame on Republicans in Congress to try to make Kamala Harris the president. Elected this time, not installed. The inflation is going up and they're trying to taper it back in. It's telling to me that they're waiting until 2023. But we'll see what happens with that. And stocks are falling left and right over this. You hate to see it. You really do. You hate to see it, no matter who the president is. And I know there are a lot of people out there that say that they hope that Biden fails. I don't, because that's going to take a lot of really good people with him. And it's going to be the little people. It's going to be the guy that sweeps up behind your grocery store, the guy who takes the trash out at your local dealership. Those are the people who are going to be hurt if the presidency fails. I would not wish a failure on policy on anybody. But I don't anticipate anything good coming out of this either. All right. From Eyewitness ABC 7 News out of New York. New York, George Floyd statue unveiled outside City Hall in Newark. I have no author given on this one. The city of Newark is paying tribute to George Floyd. St. George, hallowed be his name, with a new statue in front of City Hall. Mayor Ross Baraka, actor and filmmaker Leon Pickney, and artist Stanley Watts unveiled a 700-pound bronze statue on Wednesday afternoon. Isn't that what George weighed at the end of his life too? The statue was commissioned by Pickney, sculpted by Watts, and donated this week to the city of Newark. Floyd's death, it wasn't a murder, at the hands of Minneapolis police officer last year fueled global movement for racial justice. Hopefully when people walk by and they see it and they participate, hopefully it inspires them to become active in the struggles that are happening right here in Newark and right here in New Jersey, Baraka said. The statue will remain outside City Hall for at least 1 year. The ceremony also honored Juneteenth. Yeah, I haven't even put that onto the stack for the... I need to put that because we need to cover that. But yes, apparently the Senate, and I don't have anything green check verified up here because we've got a full rack already. But apparently, yeah, the Senate unanimously passed Juneteenth as a national holiday, which I've already got the email from my bank saying that I can't do anything on Juneteenth because they're closed for Juneteenth. In observation, it's a federal holiday now. If you were outside of Texas or Oklahoma, I want you to be honest with me. And I don't care what the color of your skin is. To be honest with me, did you know what Juneteenth was until President Trump decided he was going to hold a rally on that day? Because if people are being honest, a lot of them are going to say no. I'm telling you right now, a lot of people are going to say no. But the optics are there. He's holding a rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth. Fucking bite me. Seriously. Nobody knew what Juneteenth was outside of Texas, because that's actually a Texas holiday, and that's something that Texans celebrate. But outside of Texas, here in above the Mason-Dixon line, nobody knew what that was until somebody wanted to try to call the former president a racist, because he wanted to hold a rally on that day in Tulsa, the site of the Black Wall Street Massacre, which most of us north of the Mason-Dixon line also hadn't heard of prior to that day. And now this is something that we have to come back and talk about every single day. All right, let's keep going. From Fox 6, a little bit of local news from here. This is the local Fox affiliate over in Milwaukee. Violent weekend in Milwaukee. Mother of 2 killed from Casey Cronus. Multiple people were shot on Monday, June 14th. One of them fatally over the weekend. 3 people were killed, including a young mother of 2, sending a ripple of grief throughout the community. Gun violence took her life away, and we're so devastated, said Ava McClinton. A grieving family gathered with balloons held tightly in hand on Monday to honor all life lost, an all too familiar sign. Put down the guns and let's start loving each other, please, everybody, McClinton said. 23-year-old Brittany Meyer was shot and killed Sunday near 21st in Galena. She was a wonderful woman, said McClinton, Meyer's great aunt. McClinton said her great niece leaves behind 2 young children and dozens of loved ones whose hearts are now broken. Please, America, stop killing. Stop. We don't want this to happen to any other family, McClinton said. We love our beautiful Brittany and we pray for her every day. We love her and we're going to miss her. Meyer's shooting death is one of 3 homicides in the city between Friday and Sunday. A dozen more shootings unfolded in the same time frame. It hurts my heart, said Linda Barnes, House of Peace manager site. On Monday, a triple shooting near Hoyt and Leon Terrace left 1 man dead. Near 76th and Green Tree, a 66-year-old woman was seriously injured when police said someone approached her vehicle and fired shots inside. I believe in the city. I believe in the future of the city. I believe things can and will get better, said Brother Robert Wotipka, OFM Captain, Capuchin Community Service Ministry Director. Sorry, I butchered that name and that title. Just a few blocks from the balloon release held in Meyer's honors, Brother Robert Wotipka, with House of Peace near 17th and Walnut, is inviting neighbors to find healing in its garden of peace, where the community is encouraged to choose love over violence. Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing a lot of that right now, and these are the shootings that you're not going to hear on the mainstream media, because a lot of this is gang violence, and this is coming. I mean, if you look at some of the neighborhoods here, this 21st and Galena. So that's near East Side. What was the other one? 76 and Green Tree. That's a little bit further out, but still, that's up to the north. 17th and Walnut, near East Side. A lot of this is gang violence. A lot of this is the kind of stuff that they don't want to put in the statistics. They want for the statistics to say that there were the mass shootings and there were this many deaths by gun violence, but they don't want to talk about what to do for the solutions for all of this. But yeah, there's a reason I don't go to Milwaukee. If I can avoid it, I don't go to Milwaukee. I don't go to Madison for anything. Like, I drive through it. And Madison's actually a peaceful place. With all their stupid progressive policies, I don't feel like giving them my 0.5% sales tax. Because that's the local county tax for Dane County. I don't give that to them whatsoever. I will not spend money in Dane County in Wisconsin. Milwaukee I will still. Because I know that there are parts of Milwaukee that are still somewhat based in some of Milwaukee counties there, and they're not making the policy on top of it either. They're just kind of pulling their hands back and saying, we can't do anything about this. So I'll give them sparingly a little bit of money in tax revenue, but for the most part, no. I try to avoid Milwaukee if I can, because if I do shoot back at one of these situations, there's going to be hell to pay. And most of it comes from the color of my skin. So just don't go there. That's it. But on the other side of Kenosha, out of Chicago, West Garfield Park shooting leaves 5 hurt, 4th mass casualty Chicago incident in just over a week. From Michelle Gallardo over at ABC7 out of Chicago. There's a lot of ABC7s. There's been another mass shooting in Chicago. The latest gunfire broke out about 9:20 p.m. Tuesday in the 3800 block of West Monroe Street in West Garfield Park, leaving 5 people hurt. Now, I can't talk about the geography of Chicago like I could for Milwaukee, because even before I got out of that region of the country, I did not go to Chicago. I just didn't do it. So I can't tell you about that geography. Earlier Tuesday, there was a deadly mass shooting in the 6200 block of South Morgan Street. There have been 4 mass shootings in Chicago in a little over a week. That means 4 shootings in which there have been at least 4 gunshot victims. Police are still investigating the 3800 block of West Monroe. The group was outside the 3800 block of West Monroe Street where they were shot at, possibly by multiple people, according to Chicago police. A 29-year-old woman was struck in the back, a 39-year-old man was shot in the shoulder and leg, and a 40-year-old man was struck in the shoulder, police said. They were all taken to Mount Sinai Hospital. But one thing that I do have to point out as we're looking into this and we're seeing this happen is that none of this happened in Chicago when this guy was on patrol. We didn't see that kind of stuff. This guy took no shit. You wanted to keep the streets of Chicago safe? You look at this guy right here. Carl Winslow. Best Chicago police officer there ever was. Alright. Anyway. The shootings prompted Mayor Lori Lightfoot to say Chicago has joined a club of cities to which no one wants to belong, cities with mass shootings. She has now joined other mayors from around the country, signing a letter to the Biden admin calling for the federal government to take action and tighten gun laws. Well, first, Mayor Lightfoot, you need to tighten your police laws. Because you have the tightest gun laws in the country. You have the tightest gun laws in the nation, and people are still getting guns in your city and shooting at people. So get the fucking corrupted police union out of the way. Get the hand. If you want to fix your city, and I mean you're a leftist, so you want more control from the top, then you go out there and you let your police do their job. And there might be casualties. And then you'll have protests in your city, which, I mean, when have you ever been against the protests either? Because you had those in your city all last year. And once they got into your gated fucking community, you shut them down. But either way, you have the laws on the books. Enforce them. Let the cops go in there. Or admit that your gun control has failed, and all those pretty laws that you have on the books, don't do jack shit, and step down as mayor. And let somebody competent come in and do it. Alright, from WGN9. Lightfoot condemns illegal guns, calls on federal aid to combat Chicago crime. From Taman Bradley. While many look to Lori Lightfoot amid a rise in Chicago gun violence, the mayor is instead pointing the finger at a problem she says only the feds can fix. That's an admission that you need to step down from your office. If you need somebody higher up than you to come and fix it for you, you should not be in office, and the people of Chicago should recall your ass because you have failed as mayor. As violent crime continues to rise in cities across America, several mayors say illegal guns are the big problem. It's somebody else's problem. CPD Superintendent David Brown on Tuesday said officers have recovered 5,200 illegal guns this year alone. Now there's push for a federal strategy. Of course there is. Lightfoot invited reporters to an event about urban development and climate change, but it was overshadowed by the city's persistent violence after 8 people were shot at home in Englewood. I'm concerned about the fact that there are people who are dead in an act of violence that makes no sense to me, Lightfoot said. A surge in Chicago shootings is raising fears of another long and violent summer. Would that be a cruel summer, perhaps? According to Chicago police, murders are up 5%, shootings up 17% so far this year. The situation is not unique to Chicago, according to the Washington Post. Gunfire killed more than 81,000 people in America, 54 people per day during the first 5 months of the year. The U.S. Conference of Mayors addressed the issue on Tuesday, with Lightfoot calling for a nationwide anti-gun violence push. We've got to redouble our efforts to call upon the federal government to help us stop the flow of illegal guns into our city, Lightfoot said. A lot of this played on social media that then becomes the shooting, a beef from one person to another, one group to another. It's a completely different dynamic if there's no guns. There are already effectively no legal guns in Chicago. You already have all the laws on the books that say that you're not allowed to have a gun in the city. And now you want to punish everybody else who has responsible gun ownership? No, fuck you. Because the criminals are still going to get guns. I want to aside here for just a second. And I know that we're running up on the clock. It's already almost fucking now. We're going to have to skip some of this until tomorrow. Because it's already just about 9. But I want to do a slight aside for this. Now, most of you know that I lived in Boston for 2 years. In the greater Boston metro. I didn't actually live in the city. I lived in the greater metro, just south of there. And now I'm playing Fallout 4. And it's interesting to me because in the previous Fallout installments, Fallout 2, both happening out on the West Coast, I mean, still gun ownership is kind of scant, except for the gang violence guns in Los Angeles. So it would be understandable that there would be at least guns available, especially with military bases out there, in the alternate timeline of Fallout, 100 years, 200 years after the apocalypse. It would be understandable that there would be stuff in California and even Las Vegas and even in DC with all the military outposts that are in DC. It would be understandable that you would be able to find guns in DC. But it's interesting to me, and this is the aside this is for illegal guns. It's interesting playing Fallout 4 that most of everything that you pick up seems to be cobbled together from pieces of wood and pipe. Wood, carbon fiber, and pipe. It doesn't look like these are actual manufactured guns. I mean, you've got your 10mm pistol. You've got the assault rifle, as so-called. You've got shotguns and whatnot that you can pick up that are prefabbed and whatnot. But the majority of guns that you find on Raiders, on the opponents that you take down at Fallout 4, seem to be cobbled together, handmade from basically pieces of pipe and little machine surfaces. It's not like factory-made guns. Which speaks to the idea that, the greater Boston area is known for having some very stringent gun laws as well. And also, it takes an act of God for you to have a gun in the state of Massachusetts. It is an act of God for you to have a gun out there because of the way that Boston has fucked the gun laws. So it's telling the way that they do that. And that's what it's going to be. Even if you take away the guns, people are going to find a way to shoot at each other. One way or another, people are going to hurt each other. Whether it be coming from something that you've banned outright in the city, coming from a manufacturer, or they slap a piece of wood and a firing pin onto a piece of conduit pipe that they took out of their wall and get their ammunition from somewhere else. They are going to find a way to shoot at each other. It's going to happen. But don't listen to my advice. I'm just a guy who yells into a microphone. You're the mayor of Chicago, and you're asking for federal help. Fuck you. All right. Let's see if we can get a couple more of these done before 9. But, at 9, I got to get out of here, and we got to go to see Stephen Ignoramus. So let's see if we can get a couple more of these out. And then we'll do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. Nicaragua stages unprecedented roundup of opposition leaders. A little bit of foreign stuff. From the Dissociated Press. Nicaraguan police have arrested another opposition politician, bringing to 6 the number detained over the weekend. That's an awkward way to write that sentence. It is grammatically correct, but that's an awkward-ass way to write that sentence. 5 were arrested on Sunday, the biggest one-day roundup so far in President Daniel Ortega's campaign to jail anyone who might challenge his rule. The last arrest, which came late Sunday, was that of Victor Hugo Tinoco, the leader of the political movement in UNAMOS. Another leader of that party, Suyan Barahona, was arrested earlier in the day on Sunday. Police arrested the prominent ex-Sandinista dissidents Dora Maria Tellez and Hugo Torres, and Another opposition leader, Ana Margarita Vigil, arrested Saturday, was Unamos activist Tamara Davila. Unamos was formed by former Sandinistas angered by Ortega's autocratic ways, nepotism, and perpetual re-elections. The weekend arrests suggest Ortega had moved beyond arresting potential rival candidates in the November 7th elections and has begun arresting any prominent members of the opposition. The arrests bring to 13 the number of opponents detained since June 2nd. It's not just potential candidates anymore, it's political leaders. Former general and Sandinista dissident Hugo Torres told the Associated Press before he himself was arrested on Sunday. This is not a transition to dictatorship, it's a dictatorship in every way. Tellez was a leading Sandinista militant who led an assault on the National Palace in 1978, taking hostage the Congress of dictator Anastasio Somoza in exchange for the release of Sandinista prisoners. Following Somoza's overthrow, Tellez served as health minister in the first Sandinista government, which ruled from 1979 to 1990. Like many former guerrillas, she later split with Ortega. So, yeah, there's that going on just south of us. Well, the southern continent, not necessarily like in Mexico or the Northern Triangle, but there's that going on. I mean, that's what we see going on with political dissidents when an establishment gains power. Do with that information what you will. All right. From Reuters. Argentine president says Brazilians came from the jungle, sparking uproar. Yeah, I can't imagine that went over well at all. I can't imagine for a second people came out in Brazil and said, or in Argentina rather, and said, oh, he made a slur against Brazilians. Oh, well, that's okay. I can't imagine that went over well at all. I also have no author given on this one. Argentine President Alberto Fernandez triggered a Twitter storm and a regional race debate on Wednesday with misjudged comments to visiting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez that sought to play up the South American country's ties with Europe. The Mexicans came from the Indians, the Brazilians came from the jungle, but we Argentines came from the ships. And they were ships that came from Europe, Fernandez said, referring to the country's many European migrants. Oh, in today's woke world, yeah, this did not go over well, I promise you. Oh. Wow. He later apologized for the comments and said his country's diversity was something to be proud of. Well, that statement would make David Duke proud. Holy shit. Wow. Oh. The part where I read that paragraph out loud is the part that Jared Holt is going to clip, by the way. Just so you know. Fernandez seems to have taken the phrase from a song by local musician Lito Nebbia, of whom the president has declared himself an admirer on more than one occasion. The comment sparked a viral response on social media, with many criticizing Fernandez for racial insensitivity. You think? That's not just racial insensitivity, that is outright bigotry. I did not mean to offend anybody. In any case, whoever has felt offended or invisible, I give my apologies, Fernandez said on Twitter. Brazilian media ran Fernandez's statements on Wednesday, and many on social media joked that right-wing President Jair Bolsonaro would enjoy getting back at the left-wing Argentine leader. Bolsonaro obliged by tweeting a photograph of himself wearing a native headdress, smiling among a group of indigenous people. The only text in the tweet was the word jungle in capital letters, flanked by Brazilian flag emoji. That's fucking based, yo. That is based. Eduardo Bolsonaro, a congressman and the Brazilian president's son, that usually goes over well, slammed the comments as racist and a shot retort back at Argentina over its troubled economy in recession since 2018. I'd say that ship is sinking is that of Argentina, he posted on Twitter. Oh, I can't believe I read that out loud. Yeah, I can. Let's be honest, I can. Because I didn't preview this article. I just read it for the first time with the rest of you guys. Oh. Oh. All right. We have got to save the rest of this. So we're going to mark the place here that the next one is going to be Andrea. We got to save the rest of this for tomorrow because I got to get out of here. I got to go to work. But before we get out of here, we are going to do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. Because it's Thursday, that's what we do. And also, if you are lurking right now, get a last-minute message in because I will read and thank everybody who chatted in the live chat. Tomorrow, I've got the names written down. So tomorrow, you will get a special thank you from me if you are sitting here and chatting in the live chat. So even if you're a dissident, even if you hate what I do, I will still thank you for it. So even if you fucking hate me, you will still get that special thank you. So make sure you come back in and join us tomorrow morning. And tomorrow morning as well, we will go through the live chat. And if your comment is sufficiently stupid or bigoted, it will raise the intellectual level of this program. And therefore will get read on air. So make sure that you're in there chatting tomorrow as well. Let's do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. All right, thing that I like. Number one, we're going to come from Memory Beta over on Star Trek. Because I took a break from the Netflix and the Amazon. I do a little bit of Disney Plus while I'm doing video editing or show prep. But other than that, I have not watched any TV at all for like a month. And I've been reading because I need to do more of that. And I got recommended this from, I think it was a certifiably in-game video over on YouTube, to read the Star Trek Destiny series, which I started. And I'm about 2/3 of the way through the first book, Destiny, Gods of the Night. And it's really good. And I like the writing. I like the way that it goes. The story follows characters that we're familiar with from several other series. They talk about Janeway and Tuvok. Tuvok is actually in the book from Voyager. Ezri Dax, who is the superior Dax, by the way. And Jadzia, too, actually makes an appearance. Is in the book. Ezri Dax is a captain now, as of this book. Picard is in there. Crusher, Worf, Riker. So a lot of familiar names are coming across this book. But, I mean, the writing is good. They've introduced new aliens, which you can't really put on the screen because it would take more than cheap prosthetics and bad makeup to make these aliens come alive. But it's very descriptive. It's very good writing. The story takes place probably, I think it's 10 years after the Dominion War. So it's probably about 10 years after the last Star Trek series out. Because I think, aren't the two, no, Picard is still afterwards again. But other than that, Discovery, that's before. So, 7 and 9 makes an appearance too. She just showed up in the book where I was reading last night. It's a great book. It's a good read. It's a short read. Like, after reading The 12th Planet from Zechariah Stitchin for, like, a year, this is a pretty short read, and I'm flying through it. So it'd be a good one to pick up. I don't know how much longer the rest of the series is. I know that it's a trilogy, but I don't know if the other books are thicker as they go along, like a Clancy book, where you start off with The Hunt for Red October, and it's, like, this thick, and then by the time you get to The Bear and the Dragon in 2001, you've got this monstrosity here. But, yeah, it's a great book. I recommend reading it. If you like Trek especially, and you want to see what happened after the events of Voyager and then Insurrection, actually, I can't even say that was an actual insurrection because that was not an actual insurrection either, what happened in Star Trek Insurrection. That was just a title to grab your attention, but that was not an insurrection. Definitely go back and check that out. David Mack is a good writer, spans the time. Even, they do something back in the 22nd century too with the NX-02. So I'm not sure how all this ties together yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing it. So go ahead and go check that out. Star Trek Destiny, Book 1, Gods of the Night. Do we want to become famous? By followers and primes and viewers on CUTT-LY/UNZ17RP. But apparently that translates to bigfollows.com. Should we go to it? Should we do it? Do we want to become famous, you guys? All right, now for a thing that I hate. Now, I don't have green check verification for this, so I didn't put this as a main news story. But we still got to talk about this because it's pretty shitty. From Chronicles Magazine, This is a blog. This is from Michelle Malkin, so take it for what it's worth. Financial censorship of America first. Another day, another debanking. Imagine a ruthless country where peaceful citizens who fiercely defended their heritage, their families, their faith, can wake up in the morning and find themselves cut off from their entire life savings with no explanation and no recourse. That country is not Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, or Iran. That country is America in 2021. On Tuesday, the 33-year-old Lauren Witzke received a terse notice from her bank, Wells Fargo. The available balance of her account read zero. Her entire life savings of roughly $15,500 have been transferred to loss prevention. Was this a case of theft or fraud? Had her account been compromised? Nope. When I called Wells Fargo, they told me it was a business decision, Witzke recounted, and that they have the right to close my account at any time. A Wells Fargo representative told Witzke, who is working out of state and has no other bank account, that she would be barred from retrieving her funds at any branch office and that they would mail a check. You know how that goes. Wells Fargo did not respond to my phone messages and email inquiries regarding Witzke's case. Here's what you need to know about Witzke. The 2020 GOP U.S. Senate candidate for Delaware is an outspoken Christian conservative activist and supporter of former President Trump who peacefully exercised her First Amendment rights at the Selfie Fest. She has not been charged with any crime. She was, however, suspended on Twitter for peacefully opposing mass migration and violent refugee criminals in Europe. She was banned completely from the platform in March for peacefully expressing her opinion that a transgender activist who tweeted that little girls were kinky was demonic. She has organized peaceful election integrity efforts. There was more to that story, by the way. I like Michelle Malkin, but there was way more to that story. That was not just her calling somebody demonic, but there's not much more to that story, but there's more to that story than that. She has organized peaceful election integrity efforts in Georgia through her work with the Hold the Line PAC. She's been a fierce and peaceful advocate for America First principles, protecting the traditional nuclear family, supporting an immigration moratorium, and combating big tech censorship. Now, I hate this for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, the fact that, this is theft. The fact that she can't go and electronically take her funds out on demand, that's her money, and they have to mail her a check to do so. That is theft, and she's in Florida. Luckily, she has friends in Florida that can come back and help her out and get her back on her feet while she's going for this. But that is fucking theft. No matter how you slice it, that is theft. And that's wrong. Now, it does look like she's going to be getting the majority of this back. The Instagram post that I found this on made it seem like she wasn't going to be getting any of it back, and it was just used for loss and prevention. That doesn't seem to be the case in this point, but regardless. And the other thing that I hate about this, and this is what, this pisses me off to no end. Conservative Americans put this out there. They're the reason I found this, because I followed them on Instagram. They broke this story out to where I could see it. And the writer behind Conservative Americans, which I think it's Educating Liberals, I think is who runs that account now. Regardless, the writer, the person who runs the account, puts the caption up, "Cue a libertarian saying it was Wells Fargo's right to do this." First off, fuck you. Second off, yes, it was their right to end her banking relationship. Yes, they have freedom of association. You, conservative Americans, should not be putting your money into a bank that fucking hates you. And I said that at the beginning. I used to be a Wells Fargo customer, too. And for the most part, I didn't get out of them because of this. I'm glad I'm out of them now, but I didn't get out of them because of this. I got out of them because where I live, there are no branches. So it was either go up and spend money in Dane County again to go up to one of the small towns around Madison or Madison proper to go and do any sort of banking. Whereas I can go to my current bank, whose name is redacted right now, and be there, have everything done with it. I could walk to a branch of my bank. It'd be a long walk, but I could walk to a branch of my bank. Feasibly and reasonably. So with that being said, yeah, get your money out of financial institutions that hate you. But it is their right to do. It's their right to terminate their relationship. Now, if you call, they should be able to go out there and, at least give you cash at the window. in a national bank that has branches everywhere. The fact that they have to come back and mail a check, dude, that fucking burns me up. That burns me up. The fact that they have to go off and mail a check for that. Because in any other case, when you're closing an account, you go up to the window and they hand you your money and stacks of fat fucking cash. But not Wells Fargo. And watch these fuckers too, because they go back and they buy up mortgages and whatnot too. So if you have a mortgage out in companies like this, watch to make sure they're not buying it back out, because they like to do that. But regardless, yeah, this is I hate this on so many levels, it's not even funny. But that's it. We're out of here. We're done. Those of you on Twitch, stick around. We're going to go raid Stephen Ignoramus after we're done with this. Other than that, we're going to head on out of here for the day. So let's get some outro music up and let's get done. And remember, come back here tomorrow bright and early for more of this, because we're going to finish up everything else that we had to skip today and come and hang out for some more stuff tomorrow. And read the live chat too, by the way. Don't forget that. Where's my music? Where's my outro? Let's go. Let's get out of here. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat and came and hung out, even though we ran a little bit long today. Like I said, those of you on Twitch, stick around for just a sec as we go and raid my friend Stephen Ignoramus. And to the person who said, is this a conspiracy channel? This is not, but we're about to go raid one, so you can go talk about conspiracy theories with him instead. Other than that, we will be back here tomorrow with more contemporary, more news headlines, and the ones that we had to skip for today. So looking forward to seeing you here tomorrow for more of that. Otherwise, until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care. Quest pointed out that we are not going and raiding Stephen Ignoramus, by the way. I remember that too. As soon as I turned the camera off, I remembered that no, he is out this morning because he's got a late meeting here. So we are not going and raiding Stephen Ignoramus. We'll go find someone else to raid. Other than that, yeah, come and still hang out. We'll still go find someone else to watch. Otherwise, take care, you guys.